couple of T56 Magnum transmissions would pull a premium a week before LS Fest, wouldn't they? Hey guys, Jeff here at MotoIQ, and in front of me, you were looking at the very first T56 Magnum F in existence. This thing is so new, in fact, it's still a prototype, so things may change between what you see here now and when it rolls off the production line, hopefully by the end of summer 2019. Tremec sent us this pre-production unit in advance of Holley's LS Fest that's coming up May 3rd, 4th, and 5th in Las Vegas. So if you're out at that event, hopefully you'll see us with the thing in the car, so don't be afraid to come by and say hi. In this video, we're going to talk about the T56 Magnums and how they differ from the production T56 that was found in Chevrolet's 4th generation F-body cars. We're going to talk about the original T56 Magnum that we had in our RX-7 here behind me before, and then we're going to talk about the Magnum F and why we're so excited about it. So let's first talk about the original T56 Magnum here and kind of how it came about. First of all, it's sort of misnamed. This is more like a TR6060 on the inside than a T56. The TR6060 was Tremec's sort of evolution to the T56. T56 was a great transmission in the 90s when cars were only making a few hundred horsepower, but you know, come mid-2000s, as cars started making more and more power, the T56 just wasn't going to cut it. So the TR6060 has a number of improvements over the T56. Namely, it's got a much better synchronizer set in it with triple synchro mesh on first and second gears, and then double synchro mesh on all the rest of the gears, including reverse. That new synchronizer set also had the benefit of a smaller cross section. That meant you could have bigger gears in the thing. Bigger gears mean more surface area equals more torque or load capacity. The transmission also has a single piece countershaft compared to a two-piece countershaft in the T56, and a 31 spline output shaft that's more than 15% larger in diameter than the 27 spline output shaft of the original T56. And all those things basically add up to the ability to hold more power, up to 700 foot-pounds of torque with these Magnum transmissions without the loss of shift quality. In fact, it was improved. The original T56 was actually born as a solution for the resto mod crowd, guys that were taking LS1s and T56s that were attached to them and sticking them into old muscle cars. Problem with those is that shifter position is way too far back for a lot of those cars, and they didn't have mechanical pickups. So what they did was basically take the internals from the 6060, as I was saying, and they put it in a box or casing more like the Tremec TKO, which has multiple shifter locations, and it's got both mechanical and electronic speedometer pickups. So this was great for those guys. Unfortunately, when they made that, the farthest shift position, I mean, I have the offset shifter on here, so it's hard to tell, but where my finger is here is basically where the farthest back position of the original shifter was. So, you know, in the F car, the 4th gen F cars, you know, that's way too far forward for those cars. So those guys are basically left out in the cold. Tremec recognized this problem back in 2014, but until now they didn't have a solution. So while MotoIQ doesn't have any F cars in our stable, a lot of our swap cars that we put LSs in, not just the FDRX7, but also some Z cars, the 240, I think even the Toyota Supra with its original motor. The T56 with this layout is actually a really good, it puts a shifter in a really good position. You can get a close-up view of the shifter locations here. As you can see, the T56 Magnum, the original one here with the custom shifter, that's the basically ideal shifter position because we were able to have it made to exactly where it needed to pop up. You can see it's a little bit farther forward on the regular Magnum F with this straight shifter, but with this Pro 5 quick shifter and offset handle here, we're able to pull the shifter back into a more ideal position. We're actually going to take this shifter and handle and put it onto the Magnum F here, and that should give us perfect shifter position. We were able to make do with the original Magnum transmission with this offset shifter we got here, the specific one from Siki Manufacturing. And this thing worked great for us at the time. However, it's still an offset shifter. Any offset shifter is never going to give you the same feel as a shifter that's directly above and engages the shift rail. Even GM's factory 6-speed GTO got an offset shifter, and that thing wasn't even that good. It's very difficult to give the impression of how the shifting feels over video here, but you can definitely feel this is a little more sloppy with the original T56. It's still, I mean, it's still an easy shift. It's not bad, but This is just a much more crisp, positive. It locks into gear, like you just know, like I'm in gear for sure. And then this thing over here is just a little more, and there may be damage actually, now that I think of it, inside this transmission. We're gonna take it apart and see. But if you're gonna get an offset shifter, the Sickie is still the way to go. It's by far the most engineered product. It is a short throw shifter, so the shifts are very short, and it does make it a little bit more notchy. But me personally, when I'm ham-fisting the thing around the track, like I want it to be easy. Like I don't mind if I have a little bit extra throw to go. I just want to make sure that I'm in that gear. So unless you need the increased torque capacity of the T56 Magnum, you're kind of giving up the shift quality and feel improvements of the TR6060 over the regular T56 just to have that. So it might make sense just to save your money and stick with the regular T56. At least until now. Now we have the Magnum F. It's kind of the best of both worlds. So that's why we're so excited about this thing. And we know this is going to be super popular going forward for the swap guys. Now we got to get this thing in the car. So first thing we're going to do is go back in time. You're going to see me pull this transmission out of the car. Then we're going to take the shifter off of this old T56 and put it onto the new Magnum F and stick that whole thing into the car. Then we got to get a drive shaft made and hopefully have all that done in 2 weeks for LS Fest West. So the first step is to pull the exhaust off the car. There's just 2 V-bands holding the exhaust to the little secondary thing with all the cats, and then those pieces are just held on then to the 2 bolts on the exhaust manifold. Yeah, drain the transmission, pull the drive shaft. Next we go inside the car and pull the little stem thing off the shifter. That gets in the way when you're trying to pull the transmission off. So. And then we're going to the car and just loosening all the bolts around the transmission here. We're going to pull the transmission separate from the bell housing just because it's easier to access the bolts. So we get that out, and then we pull the bell housing out separately. Next we're going to swap the shifters. We're going to put the Pro 5 shifter that we had in our original T56 onto the T56 Magnum F here. And then you can see we're adjusting the Pro 5 so that when you slam it in gear it doesn't hurt anything in the transmission. And then we're separating the bell housing of the new transmission. We're going to put that in separately as well, just because it's easier. So we used McLeod's 1400 series throttle bearing on our old Magnum transmission, and it's in pretty good shape, so we're going to reuse it again for the Magnum F here. The only thing we need to do is double check that the clearances are within spec on here. And McLeod states that that needs to be between 100 and 250 thousandths of an inch, the distance between this surface here on the throttle bearing and the fingers of the clutch here. So to measure that, we're going to take our straight edge. Well, first of all, take our calipers and zero them out there. So this distance I'm getting 2.33 or 2 inches and 333 thousandths of another inch. And then, so what I'm going to do is take this measurement and subtract the distance between the throttle bearing and this same surface, the surface that mates to the transmission here. So to do that, put it on the throttle bearing and measure this distance. I'm getting 2 inches 165 thousandths. So 2.333 minus 2 inches 165 thousandths equals 167 thousandths of an inch. So that is within the 100 to 250 thousandths clearance we need, so we're good here. Now if that hadn't been in spec, we could just turn this thing, and if you can rotate it around and it'll actually rotate out. So that'll give you the extra clearance you need, but we don't need that. So we're going to put this back. You want to make sure that the bleeder line is on the top and not flipped around. Like if you have it this way, you can have it on the bottom. That's not correct. So our throttle bearing is good to go. Next we need to bolt this thing up. Then we can put the transmission mount in place, and then we measure the drive shaft to see if we need to lengthen it at all. Okay, so our drive shaft here is actually 2 inches too short from the old T56 Magnum to the new one. So we're gonna walk this up to our local drive shaft shop and get it extended. working. What's up, man?
Can I help you?
Yes, sir. I need this thing extended to 2 inches.
2 inches?
Yes, sir. And now that we got our drive shaft back, it's just time to reinstall it. Fits pretty much perfectly as we'd hoped. Just pull that up to the differential. And then we fill it up with Dextron 3 until it bleeds out the hole. And the last step is to just bleed the throwout bearing, and we did that to McLeod's instructions for this particular throwout bearing. And that was basically just to submerge the little valve thing, in this case one with a hose attached to it, in some brake fluid, .4, and then have someone sit in the car and pump the brakes until more air bubbles came out. And then we started up the car and just made sure nothing was leaking. And nothing was, so time to put the exhaust back on. And the last thing to do is just go and reattach all the O2 sensors, and then kind of zip tie and pull back the extra wire there above them, just so they're not resting on catalytic converters and melting all over the place. And that's it. Time for a test drive. So we're not going to flog on this thing too bad. Tremec told us that we have to actually be nice to it for at least for the week between when we got it installed and LS Fest West next weekend in Vegas. Initial impressions are, wow, this thing shifts fantastic. Sure, we're not doing too much with it, but I mean, it's so much smoother and just easier to shift than the T56 Magnum before with the offset shifter. And like I said in the earlier part, yes, we probably have a problem with that transmission. Something might be wrong with it. We haven't taken it apart to see yet, but I mean, I've driven RX-7s with the exact same configuration. In fact, we have one in the shop right now, and this shifts even better than that. So it's not just because the thing we had before is broken. In fact, this thing even shifts better than our C7 Corvette, which, I mean, that 7-speed manual is an amazing transmission, but this thing just is so smooth compared to even that. This is easily the best manual transmission I've ever shifted. Wow. Each gear you got a nice solid click, like it's really confidence inspiring. I know I use that word a lot of times describing this thing, but it just feels amazing. And it makes the car that much more fun to drive. Now I just need to figure out the pedal situation. The drive-by-wire thing going on here doesn't put my pedals in the greatest position for like heel towing and stuff, but that's probably something pretty easy to fix once we put our heads together on it. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. If you want to read more about Project V8 RX-7, you can do so at MotoIQ.com/V8RX-7. And then also we have a big shop here, so if you need a car worked on in Southern California, check out MotoIQ.com, and up at the top you'll see a tab that says Garage Services. You can go out there, fill out a form, and we'll let you know if we can help you. Thanks for watching.